Hello everyone, welcome to Just Ask Alumni episode number 2. We loved how the first episode went. It seems like you guys really loved it, so we're super excited to be back. The topic of discussion for today is mentorship and its role in success. Why is mentorship important? What can we learn from mentorship from a point of a mentee and point of a mentor? Today we're going to be asking a quite well-known mentor, especially to me because she was my mentor. We're bringing on Claire Briffa. Hi Claire, how are you?
Hello Isaac. I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
In the Christmas mood, so it cannot be bad with the Christmas mood.
Yeah.
So, for a bit of context, I was in the company program 2 years ago, and you were actually my mentor. So how was that like mentoring? Was that for your first year mentoring?
It was my first year.
Oh, so I
Yes.
was part of the first team.
Yes.
So how did it feel mentoring me and my team for the first time?
So, it was a first experience for me, which was something that I wanted to do for many, many, many years.
Oh, okay.
And finally, I tried to find the time to do it. So you were my first group. And it was initially, let's say, it was easy, but I had to build a relationship first of all.
Yes.
with the team, since I didn't know any of you, so I had to get to know you, and I got to know you bit by bit, throughout the weeks. But once we got to know each other, I also told you what I was expecting from you, I understood what
exactly.
you were expecting from me as well, so from there we built the relationship, of a mentor and mentees.
Exactly. There was a personal relationship between us as mentees and then you as a mentor, an individual one. But then there was that team sort of dynamic where we were asking you as a mentor. You really helped us in a lot of scenarios, especially when it came to production. I know that people from my team, especially Chapara, would really say yes to this. You helped us find a bunch of manufacturers and helped us get on that move, because it was a section that we were very, very clueless about, sort of. I mean, I think we did marketing pretty well, sort of. We had that in mind, but manufacturing was difficult. So what did being a mentor mean to you? Because you said you wanted to do it for years, and we were the first group. So what did it mean to mentor us?
Okay, so to mentor you was sharing my experience, my knowledge, and the skills that I obtained over the years with you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very important, and it also goes a bit beyond that. Over the years, I was lucky enough, possibly, that I had people who mentored me during my work experience. So it was sort of the experience for me that I was trying exactly to do what others helped me in achieving. Now, just a little secret, about the production. I was extremely worried about production because it was not something which was my expertise. I have worked with companies who produce. For example, I've worked with a company that used to sell clothing, household items related to electricity, because we were a catalog business, but I was never directly involved in production. So when I knew that you wanted to do, something which you needed to produce, sort of like the alarm bells went on in my head, and I said, okay, I have to find a way how I am going to help them.
Oh, so you learned from us.
I
directly.
learned from
Wow.
you. Yes, I had to learn from you practically. And a lot of my experience comes from services.
Okay.
Because I worked in the tourism industry. I work in education, which is a service as well.
Yeah.
I worked in recruitment. So all of these were services. So I was learning with you practically, sort of like I would do my homework before listening to you and what you wanted to do. And using my skills that I've learned, from my various experiences to help you out in, sourcing the suppliers, for example, testing the product.
Yeah.
So yes, it was also a new experience for me.
Yeah,
it wasn't easy.
Yeah, we struggled with production for a while, and it wasn't because of your recommendations at all. It was just sort of us trying to figure out a product that was so specific, but at the same time had to be so durable for such a long time, and we just couldn't manage for so many months. So what does you touched a bit upon having mentors in the past, and that was the main reason as to why you became a mentor. Can you like name maybe a specific experience, or sort of what were those mentors to you that made you really want to mentor other people?
So those mentors to me showed me how I could use skills which possibly, I wasn't aware of, and trying to grow in my positions that I've worked in. Okay, so for example, I had a specific boss which I've worked with for 8 years, which used to give me the freedom of giving me a task and allowing me to finish it completely and go with the result. In between I could ask questions, I could do my research. I love research, so for me, that's something that I do in everything that I do, and it always allowed me to reach, a step further and, another one further. So I wanted to share this with others, because mostly what I've learned in, during my work life, so to say, is due to these mentors that helped me grow.
They sort of provide a new perspective. Because when something that you helped me personally a lot with was sort of learning leadership, even though you might not be per se the leader of the group, I was a secretary, so I wasn't necessarily the leader of the group. You taught me about leadership in your specific role and sort of how you should interact with your colleagues and your teammates and your friends in such a way where even though it's your role and you're doing the work, you're contributing as a full team and you're trying to lead a team even from your individual role. And it's something I've really, really tried to grow in myself. I mean, as an alumni team, sort of, I'm in more of a leadership role here, but I think my leadership style changed so much when you mentored us as a team and then me as well, because you asked us so many questions. So when we did something wrong, it wasn't about this is wrong and this is right. It was asking us questions, trying to understand how we got to that result, and then sort of asking even more questions to sort of push us in the right direction. So you didn't spoon feed the answers to us. And I think that's such an important part, because I've grown so much from the questions. You asked us so many questions. I remember this. Every time we'd have a meeting or we'd send you a message, it was always a question back. So, what am I going to ask next?
There was a reason for that, for asking you questions.
Okay, go
because
ahead.
I did not want to tell you what to do. I had my own ideas. So, when you came up with the product, when you wanted to find the suppliers, when you had the production of the image on the product, when you came up with the marketing as well, I always had something in mind, but I never wanted to push what I had in mind. Why? Because I wanted this was your company, and I didn't want to impose, any of my ideas. Yes, I used to ask you questions, to make you think, to make you try and figure out something different or take a different path. But I always allowed you to take your own decisions, even if sometimes they might have not been, the best decisions. But that was important, because otherwise, it was your company, not my company. So, it's important that you have taken your decisions, you've learned from your decisions, what you have done maybe very well, other things which maybe you feel that you could have done better. But I always left it up to you to decide.
I find this incredibly difficult. Even in this alumni team, I find it really, really difficult to not tell someone how they should do something if I think I know it's a way to do it better. So it's an area I need to improve. And it's really interesting that you say that, because there were so many things where I feel like if we had gone exactly with if you had told us what to do, we would have done a lot better. But we had learned so much from sort of making the mistakes. I learned a lot. Again, I'm going to go back to sort of my leadership style has improved so much from JA. So I then did another project a few months after, and I remember all the mistakes I made in JA and things that you had sort of asked me about, again, questions, and asked me about and learned how to improve, and I improved that in that project. It really worked. I did the same thing, mistakes, and now in this team, we're doing that, constantly trying to ask each other sort of how can we improve this, and trying to help each other sort of get to that answer. Is there any... What do you keep in mind as a mentor? Sort of, what is the threshold of do I really need to step in and help? Sort of when a team is really struggling. I don't know if you had any of those moments with my team Young Culture, but is there a time where you do step in as a mentor and sort of tell them, look, you have to do this specifically because it seems like they're really struggling or they're completely on the wrong path?
Yeah. I can give you an example with Young Culture, actually.
Okay.
So I do remember it was December, and I was on holiday in Scotland. And while I was walking in the street, I was in the Royal Mile, and all of a sudden I saw something, and I said, what happened to Young Culture? I haven't heard from them for quite some time. Yeah, because you are constantly in contact with me, whether it's in the morning, whether it's in the middle of the night.
It was probably me. It was probably me.
So I said, what's going on? Are they having, Christmas holidays, which could be? Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm going to text you, And I remember I texted you and I said, is everything okay? How are you getting on with the project? And you had encountered an issue, actually, with an iPad, if you remember well. One of the team members. And no one spoke about it, So I just thought, let me get in touch with them to see how they're going on, because this is not normal. And then I got to know that there was this issue.
Yeah, exactly.
And had they told me, have the team told me about it beforehand, I could have helped by providing, one myself, for example. So sometimes it's good that when there's silence, as a mentor, you try to check in and see if everything is going well, if, something is wrong or they need any help. So there, yes. And if need be, I also try to pitch in, where the need arises.
Yeah, so it's a fine balance between sort of directing people towards the right path, but at the same time, when you do need to step in and sort of check on them, you do.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. What is something else are you in contact with a lot of other mentors? Not necessarily JA, but have you sort of spoken with a lot of other mentors, or maybe let's go straight to the point. Is there any mistakes that you see mentors doing that you think they need to be improving?
I think one thing is that sometimes they impose their opinions.
Okay.
So it's not easy not to sort of you have an idea and you want to put it through, but you have to keep in mind that this is sort of a journey for the mentees, as well as for the mentor. And it's not about your idea, it's not about what you want to do, but it is what they want to do. So it's important that you allow them to express their views, to express their ideas, even to do, so to say, I don't like to even to do mistakes. It doesn't matter, because we all learn, no matter how old we are, even at my age, we all do mistakes. Some way or another. But that helps us to improve. That is how I see it.
Yeah, it's very difficult, because I've had people in my team who I've said, something's gonna go bad here. But you know what? Let's let it go bad this one time, because if it goes bad once, it won't go bad again, because they would have made that mistake. And that has worked. Even with this podcast, it has worked. We've tried something, realized it didn't work, and we sort of let it go bad the first time so that we can actually analyze the problem and sort of ponder about what was wrong about it or wrong about the solution. Was there a moment as a mentor? Maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be. My team could be with the two new, the team last year and the team this year that you have. Was there a moment that popped out to you? Sort of, you're like, whoa, either you learned something or something that sort of was interesting to come upon.
I think one of the things that I learned and I admire also is that. The teams, keep on trying and trying and trying, to make their product a success.
Yeah.
Okay? So whether it's doing the business plan, the contents of the business plan, whether it is the product itself as well, but the groups always try to make it a success. Last year I had another group which was Flow, which was more focused on the sustainability.
Okay.
And it took really some effort from them to come up with the product that they wanted, but they kept on persisting until they got there.
And do you think this might annoy some people, but do you think that it's because those people are sort of not young? That's the wrong word to be using, but sort of it's younger people who haven't done much, like haven't experienced much. Do you think it's because of the fact that they're so vibrant? Does age affect it?
I would say rather than it could be age and experience.
Okay.
So, for example, given that usually these teams, the J teams are young, you know, so maybe one could not see some disadvantages, you know, or some risks. And so you keep on going, but that's something positive.
Yeah.
That's something positive, because if you don't risk, you don't get anywhere. Yeah? So in life, you have to risk. And I think that is something that makes these teams go forward. Because there are times, yes, where I look at the product, I look at something going on, and I say, oh my God, you know. But I allow it, as long as there's, you know, nothing risky which is damaging.
Yeah, exactly.
So you let it go, because it could be a success, you know, and you can see in your group, it was, you know.
It was.
So that's important, that there is an element of risk. And in business, you know, this is the reality. Business is risk. If you don't take any risks, you will remain where you are.
No, 100% true. And the thing you touched upon, experience, this is something that Adam from the J office told me. So when he had asked me and some of the other people to join the alumni team, he had either the decision of sort of, do I go for a younger team or do I go for a more experienced team? And I asked him about this, because I asked him, how did you come about picking the team? And he said, I wanted to go with you guys, the younger people, mostly because you don't have experience. And the good thing about not having experience is that when you learn something through an experience, you then usually lock your mentality into that one way of thinking. But when you don't have experience, your brain is free to sort of think. And I think that's one of the ways a mentor helps so much, because now I'm gaining experience. So certain things that I do in this team are done, set in stone, because I've made mistakes in the past, which sort of could cause issues, because it could be that there are new ways that I just haven't thought about. I think a mentor is a very good way of having a mentor is a very good way of sort of creating that new perspective, sort of saying, okay, yes, this mistake was done in the past. You have this experience. However, there might be other options to go to. There might be other ways to do things, because there's a million ways to do the same exact thing, you know?
Yes, I fully agree with your reasoning. You know, yes, and this what you mentioned, that there are different ways how to do things, many ways. It's important because it results in innovation, you know, creativity.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and that opens many avenues.
Exactly. In this team, if people actually look at the team itself, our roles in the team, so our marketing manager, our social media, us as me and Ante as coordinators, events managers, we actually don't have a lot of experience in our roles, and we picked on purpose people who aren't very experienced in roles because we want them to improve in something, but also we want someone who's a baby in that area, not because sort of obviously when someone doesn't know a lot of things, there's a lot you have to teach them and a lot you have to sort of teach them, get them up to the standard, but at the same time they're so much more innovative. Sort of this podcast, a lot of the ideas and a lot of the dynamics of this podcast came from sort of Miguel not knowing too much about marketing and too much about making a podcast, and just saying, look, what could people want? What could J Alumni want? What could our audience want? And just building the foundation from there. I think that sort of we get a lot of mentorship experience from the office, and they really helped us create this dynamic. We'll go on a short break. And after, I want to talk a bit more about the specific technicalities of the mentor-mentee relationship. So we've touched on it. After the break, we'll talk about that. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Agency Zaza and the European Union's Programs Agency for sponsoring this podcast and all of the activities we do at the Alumni. Through the Invest scheme and Solidarity Corps scheme, we not only are able to do what we want, however, these organizations are fully invested in what we do and the vision of the community we want to create. So thank you, and let's get back to the episode. Okay, so Claire, you are a lecturer in entrepreneurship, And I'm curious, what do you lecture?
Okay, so I've been lecturing for the past 20 years. I hope you don't make up my age now. And I've lectured in management, marketing, entrepreneurship, and it's something I love to do, actually. So I look forward, even after a day's work. I usually lecture just once a week in the evening. But even after, a busy day, I look forward to, meet the students, do the lecture, discuss with them as well, and get their views, see them do the research. So it's something I really, really love.
And I think there must be a very big correlation between mentorship and education. Because
there is, I would say, yes.
My mom's a teacher, and so as a teacher, you have to sort of mentor your students in a sort of way. In the courses that I'm doing at uni, sort of my study units, they try and mentor a sort of mentality. I'm doing engineering, so they try and mentor a sort of logical way of thinking, and they try to mentor us on how we should manage our time and stuff like that. So I would guess that some of the skills used in education pass on to mentorship.
They do transpose to mentorship. In fact, all the areas you mentioned are very important and are used in mentorship. Whether it's time management, which is very important, especially with the JA competitions. Which
this is something we get a lot from the company program students, since the alumni are sort of more, we're not mentors in the technical aspect, but we're more sort of buddies. They ask us a lot of these more sort of personal life questions, sort of like, how do you manage your time? And a lot of time we say we didn't manage our time that well, because we were still figuring it out for the first few months. So what are some of the skills? Are there any criteria for how you mentor someone? So in the company program, obviously you have a select number of teams that you have to pick one from every year. So let's go on that. How do you pick a team, and from that we'll get how do you pick a mentee?
So I usually pick up a team in the areas that usually I am more conversant in. So, for example, in your case, it was an area, although you produced the product, the concept was that you wanted to do a product related to tourism.
Yes.
So, to me, that's a
that's
bell,
true, yes.
because I've spent years working with, the tourism authority. I work in education related to tourism as well. So definitely that rang a bell with me. So I said, okay, this would be my number one choice. I also look at ideas, at how innovative ideas are. So that would be the second choice. I don't look at the individuals, really and truly, because I feel that through this journey, the people can actually deliver what they have in mind, the concept that they have in mind.
And so this is interesting, because I would have assumed that when it might be that your style of mentorship is different to other people, but I would have assumed that a person's character and comes into their picking that specific team. So you said it doesn't in your case.
No, it doesn't, because I prefer to focus more on the idea, that I can help on the idea, that I have the, so to say, expertise to help, rather than the team. Because the team you can get together, this is very similar to going into a new employment. Okay, so you get engaged as a manager, and you have a team to manage. The team you don't necessarily meet before. You go to the company, you see that your values tie in with the values of the company, because otherwise you cannot function in this organization, and then you manage the people. So a part of management is, managing the people, leading the people, as well. So the people are not so important, because the people aren't important.
Yeah, of course.
But for example, this year I gave up, the group that I had, which was in an area, again, it was tourism related, so in an area which I love, to mentor another team. Wow. Which is a team from our institute, but our institute is the first time that we have a team competing.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
So I felt that it's my duty to, see that the students actually reach towards the end of the competition.
Time as well, they wouldn't have they wouldn't have any students above them helping them, sort of like how we had
Yeah.
how we had second years helping us at San Luigi
Exactly,
or
exactly.
De La Salle or schools like that. So has that mentality of picking a team and sort of a goal rather than specific characters and people, has it ever gone bad? Like gone wrong, you think? Or you sort of wish that you could have looked more towards a character?
I think in the groups that I mentored, the 3 groups, including the current one, I can't say that was an issue.
Okay.
You know, it can say. I also try to adapt. You know, so I also try to adapt to the individuals. I'm quite easygoing overall, you know, although, you know, I may be demanding, yes, I know. But I try to adapt.
I remember when sort of when you would ask us to do something, would be like, okay, Claire asked, we have to do it now. We cannot delay it any further. It has to be done. Claire asked, and she knows what she's doing. So, yeah, okay, that's really interesting, because I came with the questions prepared of sort of like the characters of specific person, because
And then you have to manage the characters.
yes, 100%.
So
So
that
how
would be
how
the
do you
next
deal
step.
with managing different characters? Because I can imagine mentoring me and my team versus mentoring someone who, let's say, softer and more relaxed than I am, because I'm quite go and
Yeah.
do it sort of thing.
Yeah. So in your team there were dynamics. So one
Yes.
thing that I do first is that I observe. Yeah,
Okay.
so I observe. I let the team speak. I see the dynamics between them. I try to identify the type of characters. You will have introverts, extroverts. You know, so you will not have everyone who's an introvert or everyone extrovert. So it would be a mix. It would be a mix of the in-betweens. You know, the
Yes.
introverts and the extroverts. So you have to observe, and then you have to manage the team, you know, as a mentor, but because the team have to manage themselves then.
Yes,
No, as a mentor, you have to manage the team. So this is how I work it out usually.
Okay, so you just adapt to sort of the play styles of the team members.
Yes.
So interesting, because in my team we had such different characters, and it was obviously 2 of us would work really well together, the other 3 would work really well together, and I think when we tried to force a certain dynamic, it really didn't work. And I think you noticed that as well, because
Yeah.
when there were delays in something, it was always because there was a team dynamic issue. So what exactly is that relationship between mentor-mentee? Can you correlate it with another type of sort of relationship that you know of, or like what exactly would be a mentor to a mentee?
So you can relate it to, you mentioned the academic, for example, you know, you can relate it to a lecturer and a student. You can relate it to the place of work, you know, the manager, you know, and the employees reporting to that manager. So it's a relationship which you will find everywhere, as long as you decide to adopt it, you know, because it's also a matter of a leadership style. You know, so, you know, if we're at the place of work, what type of leadership style is being used? Or you may need to change leadership styles sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you can let, you know, sort of the type of leadership style which is democratic, we call it, or transformational. But there are instances where you need to take a decision and it has to be autocratic.
Okay.
You know, so the word doesn't sound very nice. But if you're at a risk, you know, if there's a risk and the decision is to be taken, you don't have time to consult, so you have to take it. You know? But otherwise, it's very important that you do allow their employees their space. And it's the same with a mentor and a mentee relationship. Actually, the mentoring made me more conscious of the importance of letting people, whether, you know, it's students, whether it's employees, you know, do their own thing, you know, so they know the end goal and you allow them to reach it. You can guide, you can mentor, you can give advice, you know, but it's important that you let, you know, the individual to reach their goal. It may not also be possible because of the different characters, as you mentioned. You have different personalities, and not everyone, you know, is the same. So then you have to, you know, guide the persons accordingly.
Okay. And do you sort of learn from mistakes that mentees make? Sort of, if a mentee makes a mistake, and you're like, oh, that's a good thing to know. Sort of, I should not make the same mistake, sort of. Do you learn from
Yes,
the mentees?
yes. I've actually learned a lot. Over the past 2 years, I've learned a lot. Okay? For example, we were talking about time management. This experience taught me that, yes, if there's a short time and things have to be done, they may not need to be perfect, because sometimes we look for perfection, you want every comma and, So I've learned that, yes, if there's a time limit, you have to go by that, you have to do your best. But it could not be perfection. So this is something that I've learned because I've seen you achieve, what you have achieved. So yes, that's a learning experience for me.
That's a very important part of JA, I feel like, and projects in general. Something that I try and, let's say, quote unquote, preach to my team is sort of, we do not look for perfection here. It's 80%. If it's 80% done well, we do it, we're happy, and we try and improve it. However, I sort of believe in this sort of learning curve that the first 80% is a lot easier to do than the last 20%. It takes a lot less time. So when you do 80%, do you waste more time? Well, in my case, I believe it would be wasting time getting that 80 to 100. Or do you spend the next time learning another 80% of something else? And that's something I learned a lot, even during the company program, sort of, you were telling us we have to do this, and this. And before, I was someone who was very, very perfectionist, someone who was trying to get everything to 99, 100% constantly. And you telling us, look, you cannot focus on one area. You have to do everything. You cannot leave sales behind like we did. You cannot leave sales behind.
And myself, I would be saying, but they, could do this. They could do it better. But no, don't say it. Don't say it to them. Let them keep on going.
Exactly.
So that taught me as well.
So it was a two-way.
Yes, it was a two-way. Yes, it was a two-way.
So you do believe that a mentor-mentee relationship should be two-way? Definitely. And you think it's a waste of time if it's not two-way? Sort of, if the mentor isn't learning anything, should the mentor be mentoring that mentee?
I think we always learn something, I think I learn something every day, no matter what it is. Even from students, for example, I meet students on a daily basis. You always learn something, from the people you meet on a daily basis, or what you do.
So do you think a mentor is making a mistake if they're not learning anything?
I wouldn't say a mistake, but I think everyone would learn something, whether we admit it or not. I could see also in the group that we have between the mentors, sharing experiences, one mentor with the others, and you could see that there is a learning experience even for us.
Okay, so this is interesting as well, because I do martial arts, and one important part of getting your belts and sort of progressing from white belt to master as a black belt is that somewhere in between you start teaching 1 or 2 belts below. So you start teaching 2 levels below. And this was something that my instructor had sort of drilled in me and my friends there really early on. So when I was, let's say, like halfway blue belt, I would be mentoring and teaching the younger, the younger. They weren't always younger than me. Sometimes they're older than me, which is hilarious. But sometimes he makes me teach the younger sort of belts, and I learned so much from it. When I go to then teach them, I realize that, oh no, I don't know this at all. Like, I really don't know this enough to be able to teach it, and so it makes me grab that concept and completely, like, I have to relearn this, forget completely, and relearn it all over again. So I get what you mean completely, because when you're mentoring someone, you have to know what you're saying, and so it forces you to sort of know it as much as possible before you pass on that knowledge to someone else.
Fully agree with what you're saying, in fact. And you mentioned learning and relearning, a process which is extremely important, because as time goes by, yes, there are things which we learn and we need to unlearn and relearn.
And I think a mentor is very good at that. As we were saying before, you can learn a certain experience, but the mentor can come in, show you a new perspective, and you unlearn something and relearn it again. So the mentor-mentee relationship has to be that constant sort of learning, sort of back and forth. Is there a time where you end up sort of saying, I have to put a line here, I cannot do more as a mentor? Sort of, maybe the mentee asks for too much, and you have to say sort of, no, this is where my job as a mentor stops.
Yes, there may be instances where the mentees may be expecting, a lot of help. I don't mind that at all. As long as everyone is putting their effort in. What you have to do as a mentor is maybe show the mentees, that they need to think themselves. For example, they need to do things themselves. So they need to, put their effort in. Yes, because sometimes that happens. I can't say it happened in your group at all. So, but I was always there to try, and motivate and help. So I didn't mind it at all. So maybe also that's the reason why I'm saying, sort of, it is what it is, at the end of the day. There also needs to be empathy, empathy towards the mentees, as well as empathy between the mentees themselves.
Yes.
Okay. Because sometimes the mentees may have different goals in their mind. Some would want to win. The others are there because they want to do it, but not interested so much to win.
Yeah.
So different objectives, different goals. So you, as a mentor, you need to instill also a sense of unity between the team members, and allow them to reach the goals that they have in mind. And ideally, it would be one goal. One vision.
Okay.
One goal.
So it's important for you as a mentor to understand the goals of each team member. And if you see a difference in sort of the goals, like you see, they have two separate goals here, like they're not going to somehow intertwine together, do you point it out? Would you point it out?
You try to diverge, the converge, sorry, the different, goals together, by trying to make the group understand where the group is going, and actually ask the group themselves to say where they are going, rather than you as a mentor telling them, because this is your goal. No, so what is your goal? Where do you want to go? In order to arrive there, in order to be successful, in order to win, in order to get that award, you all have to work together. Everyone has got their competences, their strengths, their weaknesses. So the most important is that the strengths, outweighs the weaknesses for maybe of others. Use the skills and competencies of A or B, so that you try. It's a team at the end of the day, and it is similar to an orchestra. When you have individuals singing on their own, it's not the same like when you have an orchestra, with all the voices together, It sounds completely different. This is a concept that in psychology is used quite a lot, that a group makes, more of a hit than, individuals on their own.
Okay, so you're trying to get this team to sort of align their goals together and make it a one uniform goal that everyone can achieve their individual goals, but that's under the umbrella of one huge goal.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Okay. So I think we can move on to the Q&A session. So we have 2 questions from the audience that we can...
Shall I hold tight?
Yeah, no. So we've already technically answered them in the episode. However, I think we can use these questions as a sort of summary, and to sort of say A, B, and C, kind of what we said today. So the first one is, what are the skills and characteristics that a mentor needs?
Listening skills, very important. I've mentioned empathy, which is also very important. Being there for although it's not a skill, but being there is very important. Making the mentees know that you are there, if you want to set sort of like, let's say when you want to be contacted, you set those rules, so to say, but you have to show them that you are there, If they feel that, they're going nowhere, if they feel they have an issue, they have to be comfortable, to come and ask you. And if they don't come to ask you, you reach out to them.
I see, okay. And we mentioned sort of aligning goals, we mentioned understanding the team as well. What are some signs, the final question is, what are some signs of a productive and positive mentorship relationship? So what are the signs that saying, look, this relationship is going well, the mentees are learning, I'm learning, and this mentor-mentee sort of, the matching between the mentor and the mentee is working? What are those signs?
It's the communication between the group. So, it all starts with communication, understanding how to communicate with one another. And if there are any differences, even between the mentor, because, everyone has got their personalities, and then the team, you try to iron those out. And if these exist within the team, as I said before, one tries to create, a serene way of how the team can work to achieve, the end goal that they have, and make this a success, even if they do not win. I always go with the perception that, we're here to reach the goal and to win. But, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. It's a learning experience. It's a learning experience for life, practically. I can say your team, how you started and how you ended. Last year's teams is the same thing. And where you went from there. And for me, that is the pride and joy of being a mentor. It's not what actually you take as a mentor, but seeing these young people like you, reaching higher and higher. So that's the most.
Do you enjoy seeing sort of people like me that you've mentored, people in my team, people in the teams that you've mentored? Do you enjoy seeing their journey after your mentorship?
Definitely.
Is it rewarding?
It's very rewarding, and I'm very proud of what they achieve. Because you know that you have contributed a little, but that little would have gone a long way.
Of course, an avalanche.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then one last question. What are there any sort of what's the word for this? Is there any advice you'd give to the teams that are in the company program this year? Sort of from a mentor perspective, what's something you'd like maybe to tell all of the students in the company program and maybe this other programs that JA do?
So I would say to the teams in the current program, I would say, they have to plan, they have to work together. They have to follow their vision. It's also important to understand that they will encounter issues, and they have to bypass those issues. That they don't give up, when they find a stumbling block. Because, as you well said, for example, in the case of young culture, the production was an issue.
Yes.
It took a lot of time, to sort it out. So it's important that you don't give up. If there's a stumbling block, you move ahead, and you continue moving until you achieve what you would like to achieve. It's important to dream as well.
Yeah, I believe that completely. Thank you, Claire. It has been a great time chatting with you. It's been a while since we've chatted, so this has been great. I want to thank you for mentoring me in the past,
welcome.
Wanting to come on this podcast episode and talk about mentorship, because it is a topic that I personally feel really, really strong about, and I know the rest of the team really think that this is such an important topic. And this was one of the topics that was suggested to us from CP students themselves, sort of. So,
excellent.
Yeah. Next episode, we're going to be bringing on Chapara, Andrea.
Okay.
That's going to be interesting. Stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking about the mentor-mentee relationship from a mentee perspective. So thank you for coming on once again. It has been great. Thank you for all your knowledge and for sharing your mentorship here. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys once again for watching that Just Ask Alumni episode. We're so grateful for you guys watching, and we want to thank the team at JA Malta for their support for this room and for all the equipment, and for helping us immensely with all our projects. And we want to thank the JA Alumni volunteers and board teams, because without their work, we wouldn't be here. So thank you guys, and see you next month.